In today's episode, we are exploring a fascinating aspect of mystical and magical traditions, the role of imagination in esoteric practices. While many believe that the magical use of imagination emerged during the Renaissance, a period of intellectual and artistic flourishing in Europe, we'll delve into the idea that these practices actually have deeper roots, extending back to the medieval period. Based on Egil Asprem's study, our discussion focuses on two significant themes. Firstly, we introduce the concept of Christian Kataphatic spirituality. Kataphatic spirituality involves using detailed, positive imagery and affirmations in prayer and meditation, as opposed to apophatic spirituality, which is about approaching the divine through silence and negation, beyond images and forms. We'll examine how this imaginative form of spirituality, particularly in Christian contexts, gained popularity in the Middle Ages. Thinkers like Bonaventure played a pivotal role, teaching people to use their imagination to vividly picture and connect with biblical scenes and divine figures in their spiritual practices. Secondly, we explore the influence of Aristotle's ideas on medieval scholars and how his theories about inner senses shaped the understanding and imagination in mystical practices. By examining these historical and conceptual threads, our aim is to show that the imaginative aspect of esoteric practices is deeply intertwined with Christian Kataphatic spirituality, dating back to the medieval period. This connection challenges the notion that esoteric practices are a separate or novel addition to religious history. So join us as we uncover the rich tradition of imagination in the mystical and magical practices that have been part of Christian spirituality for centuries. Before we dive in, I'd love to remind you to sign up for my newsletter. Don't rely on the capricious algorithm and social media platforms that could shut down whenever they decide. By signing up for my newsletter, you will always be up to date with my work and will get access to exclusive content, pictures, and academic research. You will find the link in the bio, the cards, the info box, and a pinned comment. You will also find all the ways to support Angela's Symposium, as this project is brought to you by you. Check out the services I offer on drangelapuca.com and join my inner symposium on Patreon, Coffee, or YouTube memberships. And thank you to the generous souls who make this project available to all. Now let the symposium begin. Hello, Symposiast. I'm Dr. Angela Puca, Religious Studies PhD, and this is your online resource for the academic study of magic, esotericism, paganism, shamanism, and all things occult. As Egil Asprem highlights, recent scholarship in the field of esotericism has been pivotal in recontextualizing esoteric currents as fundamental components of Europe's religious, philosophical, and scientific heritage. This revisionist approach not only reevaluates the doctrinal contributions of esoteric thinkers, but also their institutional and social standings within their historical context. Despite these advancements, the exploration of esoteric practices themselves has remained relatively underexplored until recently. Current research aims to illuminate how these practices differentiate esotericism from other categories, such as mainstream religion or Christianity, while also highlighting the underlying continuities obscured by these distinctions. Central to this exploration is the role of the imagination in esoteric practices. You may have heard of visualizing your intent and visualization in esoteric practices, which are predominantly kataphatic, relying on imagery and visualization techniques. This stands in contrast to apophatic practices that aim at transcending imagery. This focus challenges earlier scholarly efforts to set esotericism apart as a distinct and separate tradition, proposing instead that esoteric practices are deeply interwoven with broader historical trends in European intellectual and religious thought. The significance of the imagination esoteric traditions in the Western world can be traced back to the affective piety movement of the late Middle Ages and the synthesis of Aristotelian psychology with Neoplatonic epistemology during the era of high scholasticism. These roots suggest that esotericism is more indebted to medieval scholasticism than to the humanism of the Renaissance, a notion that shifts the historical and conceptual emphasis of esoteric studies. Moreover, the distinction between Kataphatic and Apophatic practices reveals a complex interplay within the wider realm of Christian mysticism and contemplation. This nuanced perspective shows that these practices are not strictly dichotomous, but are part of a broader continuum within Christian spirituality. By understanding esoteric practices within this broader Kataphatic tradition, it becomes clear that they are not peripheral anomalies, but integral to the fabric of European religious and philosophical history. In essence, the examination of esoteric practices enriches our understanding of Western esotericism's place within a larger historical and intellectual framework. It challenges us to reconsider the narrative that has often placed esotericism at the margins of mainstream scholarly discourse, suggesting instead a more integrated view of its role in shaping European thought. In exploring esoteric practice and the pursuit of gnosis, or special knowledge, the distinction between Kataphatic and Apophatic methodologies offers a profound insight into the diversity of spiritual practices. Kataphatic approaches, rooted in the tradition of affirmation, actively engage the imagination through mental and physical imagery, words, music, and emotion, aiming to inspire a connection with the divine. Conversely, apophatic methods, characterized by denial, seek to transcend the confines of sensory and conceptual frameworks, aspiring towards an ineffable understanding of divinity that lies beyond words, logic, and imagery. Historically, this distinction has deep theological roots, tracing back to early Christian thought and mysticism, where it served to differentiate between two paths of experiencing the divine. One through positive, graspable visions, and another through a comprehension that transcends sensory or intellectual apprehension. While traditionally associated with religious elites, the broader application of these concepts reveals a fundamental difference in contemplative techniques across various spiritual traditions, emphasizing how practitioners engage their minds and bodies to pursue spiritual understanding. In the context of Western esotericism, these distinctions are particularly relevant. Esoteric practices have historically leaned towards the Kataphatic, with techniques that utilize imagery and the creative power of imagination to achieve spiritual insights or higher knowledge. This orientation does not exclude the presence of apophatic elements, which, when they occur, often represent the culmination of a spiritual journey rather than its methodological pathway. The aim is typically to use image-based techniques to facilitate spiritual experiences or revelations, even if the ultimate goal may be described in terms that resonate more with apophatic mysticism. The relationship between esoteric practice and the acquisition of gnosis further complicates this dynamic. Gnosis is often positioned as a form of knowledge that transcends conventional sensory experience and rational understanding, aligning more closely with apophatic descriptions of knowledge. However, pursuing gnosis within esoteric traditions frequently employs Kataphatic practices, suggesting a nuanced approach where specific techniques evoke and discern spiritual truths, often through rigorous systems of symbolic interpretation and experiential verification. Examples of this composite approach are found throughout the history of esoteric practice, from the theurgic rituals of Renaissance Neoplatonism to modern occultism's focus on developing inner senses through imagery and symbolic engagement. These practices demonstrate continuity with mainstream Christian spirituality, particularly within traditions that emphasize cultivating inner sensory experiences as pathways to divine encounters. In essence, the interplay between Kataphatic and Apophatic methodologies in esoteric traditions reveals a complex landscape where the pursuit of spiritual knowledge navigates between the tangible and the transcendent, employing the imagination as a crucial tool in the quest for a deeper understanding of the divine. Understanding the role of the imagination in historical context, particularly within historic practices, requires distinguishing between modern conceptions of mental imagery and how practitioners understood such phenomena in the past. The imagination, often seen today as a singular faculty, capable of creative and active mental imagery, was conceptualized in various complex ways throughout history, influenced significantly by scholastic faculty psychology and the Aristotelian Renaissance. Scholastic discussions, especially in the Middle Ages, delved into the architecture of the human mind, exploring the intricate relationship between mental imagery, imagination, and the acquisition of knowledge. This period marked a profound engagement with Aristotelian philosophy, reintroduced to the Latin West through translations of Arabic commentaries, including those by Avicenna and Averroes. These works, rich in theories of cognition, sparked a burst of scholarly creativity, laying the groundwork for later esoteric conceptions of mental imagery. Avicenna, for instance, proposed a sophisticated model of internal senses, where information from the external world is processed by a series of inner faculties, culminating in the formation of mental images and intentions. This model distinguishes between various forms of imagination, including a formative, retentive imagination responsible for holding mental pictures, and a compositive imagination capable of manipulating these images and intentions. This distinction underscores the complexity of medieval conceptions of mental imagery, far removed from the oversimplified views attributed to this period by later scholars. Moreover, the scholastic debate extended to the nature and function of the active intellect, a concept borrowed from Aristotle and given a Platonic interpretation by Avicenna. This debate concerned how mental imagery and the inner senses contribute to the process of understanding, with significant implications for the epistemic status of imagination. For instance, Thomas Aquinas' interpretation of the active intellect as a power within the human mind to abstract universal truths from particular experiences marked a departure from Avicenna's more Platonic view, emphasizing the role of the imagination in both understanding particulars and apprehending universals. This shift towards a more Aristotelian scholastic model of cognition, initiated by scholars like Albert the Great and Thomas Aquinas, highlights the imagination's crucial role in the process of understanding. Imagination, in this framework, serves as a bridge between the sensory experiences of the external world and the intellect's abstract reasoning capabilities, enabling a deeper engagement with both the material and spiritual aspects of reality. In summary, the historical exploration of imagination and mental imagery in esoteric practices reveals theories and debates extending far beyond the simplistic contrasts drawn between imagination and reason. The nuanced views of medieval scholars, deeply influenced by Aristotelian and Platonic thought, underscore the complexity and diversity of intellectual traditions that have shaped our understanding of the human mind and its capacities for knowledge and understanding. The intricate relationship between theoretical knowledge of the mind's faculties and its implication in contemplative practices reveals medieval cognitive and spiritual life. This connection, deeply intertwined with theological inquiries, paved the way for innovative contemplative techniques, notably through the work of Giovanni di Fidanza, better known in Italian as Bonaventura da Bagnoregio, and known in the English-speaking world as Bonaventure, the seraphic doctor. Before delving into Bonaventure's contributions, it's essential to acknowledge the monastic tradition's role in shaping Kataphatic spirituality, particularly through the art of memory. This practice, which goes beyond classical rhetorical techniques for enhancing memory, was fundamentally aimed at fostering thoughts about God. It was a craft that required active construction by practitioners, utilizing tools like written and illuminated memory aids and visualized prayers. Influenced by Esotericism and Jewish mystical traditions, these arts involved exercises such as visualizing angels and heavenly architectures to compose and memorize prayers, demonstrating a profound engagement with mental imagery as a pathway to divine contemplation. Additionally, Neoplatonic ideas, especially those propagated by church fathers like Augustine, significantly influenced the understanding of imagination within spiritual practices. Augustine viewed imagination as a critical yet unreliable faculty, capable of forming memories and playing a role in cognition but prone to creating deceptive images. However, he also acknowledged the existence of true images emanating from the divine realm, offering a nuanced perspective on mental imagery's role in accessing spiritual truths. Bonaventure, deeply influenced by Augustinian thought, integrated Aristotelian concepts of cognition with an illuminationist epistemology, crafting a cognitive theology that emphasized the imagination's central role in spiritual understanding. In his seminal work, Itinerarium Mentis in Deum, The Journey of the Mind to God, Bonaventure proposed a contemplative path that mirrors the Trinity through the mind's faculties, assigning a pivotal role to the imagination. This faculty serves as a mediator, transforming sense impressions into true apprehension through divine illumination, akin to Christ's mediating role in the Incarnation. This process suggests that every act of understanding involves a direct intervention by Christ, illuminating the imagination to reveal divine truths. Bonaventure's cognitive theology not only offered a philosophical framework, but also laid the groundwork for practical devotional practices. His gospel meditations, exemplified in works like Lignum Vitae and Vitis Mystica, advocate a contemplative journey from sensory perception to mental imagery and ultimately to divine illumination. These practices, leveraging the intimate connection between the imagination and the incarnation, allow practitioners to access the mystery of Christ directly through the creative power of mental imagery. The widespread adoption of Bonaventure's Kataphatic practices marks a significant transformation in late medieval Christian spirituality, emphasizing personal piety through prayer and contemplation of images. The popularity of devotional literature and the Book of Hours genre in the later Middle Ages underscores the profound impact of these contemplative techniques, highlighting the enduring legacy of integrating cognitive theories with spiritual practice. Exploring the relationship between Christian Kataphatic spirituality and the development of esoteric practices leads us to two significant hypotheses. The first suggests that the popular affective piety movement of the later Middle Ages, emphasizing the power of imagination within a philosophical context, laid the groundwork for what are now recognized as esoteric practices. The second hypothesis posits that the blending of Aristotelian inner sense tradition with Neoplatonic epistemology in high scholasticism prefigured the understanding of the imaginative faculty in later esoteric sources. To substantiate the first hypothesis, it is essential to establish both proximity and similarity between Christian devotional practices and those considered esoteric. Proximity refers to the socio-historical connections, such as shared practitioners, while similarity points to analogous techniques or actions within the practices. For instance, both in popular devotion and esoteric practices, we observe techniques that focus the practitioner's attention on mental imagery with explicit religious content, suggesting a shared Kataphatic approach. Evidence of proximity is readily found in the widespread influence of the affective piety movement, suggesting a cultural milieu from which esoteric practices could naturally emerge. Moreover, many of those deeply involved in the development and dissemination of esoteric practices, such as priests, monks, and theology students, were also entrenched in Kataphatic devotional literature, indicating a direct link between these spiritual practices. The second hypothesis requires demonstrating continuity between the scholastic amalgamation of Aristotelian and Platonic elements and the esoteric notion of imagination among Renaissance and early modern intellectuals. Figures like Marsilio Ficino, while often celebrated for their Neoplatonic contributions, in fact drew heavily from the scholastic tradition in their accounts of the inner senses and imagination. This continuity suggests that what we often consider innovative in the esoteric tradition was deeply rooted in the scholastic thought. The historical differentiation of similar Kataphatic practices into esoteric and merely Christian categories speaks to the construction of heteropraxy through theological and cultural policing. This process of creating rejected knowledge has led to certain practices being stigmatized as illicit or dangerous, despite their common philosophical underpinnings with accepted Christian practices. The allure of these prohibited practices among certain demographics, attracted by their supposedly subversive character, underscores the complex interplay between cultural norms, religious orthodoxy, and the pursuit of knowledge. In summary, intertwining Christian Kataphatic spirituality with esoteric practices reflects a rich historical array of philosophical, theological, and practical influences. The exploration of these relationships reveals the shared foundations of these spiritual practices and the socio-cultural dynamics that have shaped their reception and categorization throughout history. This is it for today's video. If you watched until this point, leave me a cross emoji. Now, my dear symposiasts, this project of delivering free academic knowledge based on peer-reviewed scholarship can only exist thanks to your support. So if you have the means and want to be super altruist and offer this knowledge to all, please consider supporting my work with a one-off PayPal donation by joining memberships, my inner symposium on Patreon or Ko-fi, super thanking me in the comments, and checking out my services at drangelapuca.com. You can book private lectures, tutoring sessions, commission videos, and much more. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter so that you are always up to date with everything that is going on with me. I'm planning on launching online courses, so you might want to sign up so that you are the first one to know about it. And also, you get access to my uncensored thoughts. So why not sign up? It's free. And you find all these links in the info box, in the cards, in a pinned comment. You know, if you want to do it, you know where to find the link because it's everywhere. So if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, activate the notification bell so that you will always be notified when I upload a new video, share this video around so that the symposium can grow, and let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on this episode. Thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now. Today we hold